Hello and welcome to me missing the way that books used to be. This video is generally more of like a discussion and a rant than it is a video essay or anything sophisticated like that. So allow me to introduce myself. I used to be a booktuber. This channel you are on right now used to be a booktube channel. From the age of 14, I wanted to be a booktuber so badly. I loved watching Poland Banana's books and Jessie the Reader and Tashopolis and Catty-tastic and so many other booktubers talking about books and doing fun, ridiculous bookish challenges with their friends, and I wanted that so bad. When I was 12, I read like 70 books a year. And from the ages of like 14 and 16, I was averaging like 50 books a year. I loved reading, I loved talking about books, I loved the booktube community. And so far this year, in 9 months, I have read 7 books. 7. It's not because I don't like reading anymore, I do. And it is true that I have less time to read lately. But it's mainly because I struggle so much to find books that I like. I love science fiction and horror and thriller and mysteries. But these books can seem so much harder to find at the moment because they just don't have the same popularity as other genres. I can of course order books online that are less popular, do more research into indie books, support indie authors, go to libraries, and maybe I'm just complaining about absolutely nothing. But it stands to reason that the books that are being marketed so much these days just aren't to my taste. And the book world and community seems to have just changed in the time that I've left it. And today I want to explore why that is. Jessie the Reader recently made a video about has book quality declined recently, and it got me thinking, and it got the big brain ideas churning. I don't know if this is all stuff that everyone knows, but it just sort of clicked in my mind that this is what's happening, and I want to put my own take on it. Publishers have always chosen books based on what's popular. After Twilight, they wanted paranormal romance. After The Hunger Games came the dystopia trend. After Sarah J. Maas, everyone wanted sexy fairies. For a while, I blamed a lot of the changes in the publishing industry on Sarah J. Maas, and I wasn't entirely wrong. So I have a whole other separate rant to put at the end of this video about the effect of Sarah J. Maas and the A Court of Thorns and Roses series on publishing and book trends. So if you're interested in that, stick around to the end. But first, let me get back on topic. What has caused such a change in the books that are popular? Because all of a sudden, We Were Liars and They Both Die at the End are back on the bestseller list. And they're great books, but I read those years ago. What's causing a rise in dark academia, enemies to lovers, revenge fantasy? There is a certain social media platform that seems to have a grip on both readers and the publishing world. TikTok. TikTok has now forever changed how books have become marketed. Booktok is fine, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not necessarily a big part of it, so I can't speak on it too much. But it's changed things, because TikTok is short form content. I know now there's like a 10-minute or a 6-minute TikTok feature, but no one watches that. People go to TikTok as a place where you don't even have to pick the content you want to consume. Everything is automatically generated for you on a For You page based on an algorithm. And if something doesn't immediately grab your attention, you scroll. What does this mean for books? It means the advertising of books have been reduced to a catchphrase, tropes, and a cover. In a YouTube video, you would hold up the book, you would say the title and the author, you read the blurb, talk about whether you disliked it or really loved it, and you might even go into a spoilery review. In a TikTok, you get to see the cover, 3 words of a review, a rating, and then you move on to the next book. There's a lot of books I can recognize because I know they're popular on TikTok. Can I tell you what they're about? Nope. I can, however, tell you it's a slow burn enemies to lover with a revenge arc. I can maybe guess the genre off the cover and guess that it's a good read because I've seen the cover a million times. But I still don't know what that book is about. And what effect is this going to have on the manuscripts that publishers are choosing to publish? They're going to be picking the books that can be reduced to buzzwords. If your manuscript hits a bunch of tropes and it's a fantasy or a contemporary, you are so much more likely to be picked. It's easy to market, it's what's popular. And as someone who's an aspiring author, this is kind of scary. The kind of marketing I'd want to do for my book may not be what's going to be successful these days. I'm a science fiction author, and the next book I'm going to write is a sci-fi horror. And these are the genres that are becoming even harder to get traditionally published. It's only due to readership that they're being kept alive. I can sell my book in 2 sentences, sure, But if it doesn't hit a bunch of keywords that are what's popular with the kids right now, is anyone even gonna listen? TikTok has also created this really interesting recycling of books. When I first got into TikTok, I got a booktoker talking about underrated series. And they mentioned in that list The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken, which baffled me. The Darkest Minds is not an underrated series. It had a film adaptation. It was really popular on Booktube at the time. A lot of people were talking about it and went on to read even more of Alexandra Bracken's books. It's not underrated. It was just popular years ago and you're new to the scene. I mentioned earlier We Were Liars and they both die at the end. Both of these books have now gotten sequels due to their revival. One of Us is Lying had an extreme amount of marketing. I very distinctly remember when this book was coming out and everyone was talking about the Breakfast Club but with murder. And it's still on the New York Times bestseller list. It's crazy that TikTok has now brought back books. And it does the same with songs and other art mediums. Is this a bad thing? I really don't know. Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone are more popular than ever. Colleen Hoover is still thriving despite being really problematic. And Of Court of Thorns and Roses got ever popular. This is great for the authors, good for them. Except for the problematic ones. But I do feel like it's going to make it even harder for debut authors to be seen. Outside of the publishing side of things, I really want to know if any other readers have felt this effect. None of my favourite genres are currently popular. I'm not a big fan of fantasy or contemporary or romance or erotica, but these are the books that are most accessible. And most of the time when I find books I'm interested in and I look it up online to purchase it, it's gonna take the book supply a couple of weeks to get it in. Meanwhile, you can buy Throne of Glass for like $12 and Colleen Hoover books for $10 at Target. TikTok/BookTok isn't bad. It's just changed things. And I am an old woman who misses the way things were. And now I would like to indulge in another discussion, one that isn't even mentioned in the title. I would like to rant about a certain author who Booktok did also bring back. Sarah J. Maas's books have been popular ever since the release of Throne of Glass all the way back in 2012. It was marketed as an edgy YA fantasy with an assassin for a protagonist. And I was really interested in it because everyone was raving about it. It really grew more and more popular as the series continued. I don't have a problem with the Throne of Glass series itself. In saying that, I read it very young and I have heard that there are more problematic things in it, but I was too young to pick up on any of them. Throne of Glass series itself, don't have a problem with. I have a problem with the way it was marketed and what age it was marketed to. Statistically, the average young adult reader is 24 years old, but people as young as 13 or even 12 can read YA. Publishers didn't really seem to care about that. Considering Throne of Glass was published in 2012, an age of The Hunger Games and The Maze Runner and Divergent and Twilight, the young adult age category was hitting it off, right? And so they wanted every book possible to be made YA. So clearly the publishers made Maas write the series as YA when it always felt like it was meant to be adult. The series always had sexual content, but it was written in more of an implied manner that generally is suitable for a teenage audience. Then the sexual content of the series escalated with the fifth book in the series, Empire of Storms. Within the book there are multiple explicit sex scenes, which 13-year-old very innocent me who had never read a sex scene before skimmed over because she was a little uncomfortable. On the back of Empire of Storms, there is a mature content warning, and I can literally show it to you right now because I use this book to become part of my backdrop. Contains mature content not suitable for younger readers. When I read the warning on the back of the book, I interpreted it as the violence in this series escalating, which I was okay reading. The warning on the back is such BS though. It's on the fifth book in the series. Kids who have now become invested in this series and the characters aren't gonna stop and wait to read the series when they're older because of a warning on the back. They're invested at this point. I've also heard people who work in publishing say that when warnings were put on the back of teen books, it was encouraging kids to read them, right? The best example that I can think of is this is the Gone series by Michael Grant. It has a warning on the back that this is for older readers, but this was more of a marketing ploy to like young boys, where the content of this series is worms exploding out of people's throats and the protagonist talking about making out with his girlfriend. The warning on the back of a book like that is a marketing ploy. To put it on something like this, in my opinion, is kind of really immoral. Of course, I know kids and teens still watch MA movies and they read Smart and AO3, and while these things are still technically accessible to this age, they're not marketed towards this age. And that's the key difference here. But that's just Throne of Glass. Get ready for the effect of A Court of Thorns and Roses. Thank God I was never that big into A Court of Thorns and Roses, because having to say A Court of Thorns and Roses multiple times is difficult. A Court of Thorns and Roses was even more clearly supposed to be an adult series from the beginning. But the publishers started to realize, maybe we shouldn't give erotica to kids. So they came up with a loophole, an abomination called new adult fiction. Oh, I loathe the concept of new adult. Hypothetically, it's fine. It's an age category marketed towards people of college age, so like 18 to 21, 22. Literally, new adult. For people who want the lightness of YA and too scared to go near adult books. I like to think of it as books like Christine Ricciot's Again But Better, which features a college-age protagonist trying to have new life experiences. But Riccio wrote it in a way that, despite having an older protagonist, was suitable for a YA audience. Here's the issue with new adult. It was literally a way to make YA books with more explicit content. And bookstores didn't know where to put it. In bookstores, you have the children's section, which can include picture books to middle grade books. You have YA, which is teen books, and you have the general fiction, which includes adult books. Bookstores couldn't create a whole other section for these few new adult books coming out. A Court of Thorns and Roses was a new adult book. And of course, because it was written by Sarah J. Maas, it had a lot of graphic sex. And guess where it was put? In the YA section. This has since changed, thankfully. Those who worked in bookstores started to figure out that these books weren't appropriate to put in the YA category, and you find them safely tucked away in the fantasy adult section now. And the concept of new adult books never really took off. Like always, publishers published books similar to what's popular, and so sexy fairies became all the rage. And in general, just the amount of books published that contained smut increased. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. But it does mean that sexy books now have an advantage and a selling point. And that's absolutely great if that's what you like reading. But personally, I don't go out of my way to find books with that content. I like to base books off the plot. And right now, it's very difficult to hear someone actually say what the plot of a book is when they recommend it. And that concludes my rant. I hope someone listened. What are your thoughts on this? Does anyone else miss the golden age of BookTube? Or should I just move with the times and get over it? It's probably the second option. It's been a while since I've gone back to my roots and made videos talking about books and writing, so this was quite fun. So thank you guys for watching this rant. Next month I will be having a lot of cosplay content coming up as I'm preparing for October, which will be the ultimate anime month ever. But if you did enjoy this type of content and you want more videos talking about books, writing, etc., then make sure you give the video a like so I know that's what people want to see more of. And subscribe so you can see a range of my content. I also have an Instagram dedicated to just my writing journey and aesthetic little writing videos and updates, so if you want to check that out, there will be a link below. So let me know your thoughts below, and thank you very much for watching. Bye!